envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. So Krishna is saying, because you are dear to me and you are not envious of me. So I'm giving you this most confidential knowledge. What is the problem with envy? What is the problem with envy? What is the problem with envy? Hello, I'm asking a question. What is the problem with envy?
Babu, you said what?
Am I not audible?
I didn't get your question, Babu.
My question is, what is the problem with envy? Krishna is saying to Arjuna, because you're
Envy.
non-envy.
Okay.
What is the
I
problem?
think someone who is envious, the kind of is not peaceful, and when it's not peaceful, you're not able to surrender and learn. So when someone is envious, you cannot render service. And according to what Krishna said in 434, he said we have to be submissive and we have to be ready to offer service to the guru. Yes. So when you are envious, you lack that two quality of surrender and a kind of humility also.
Yes, very good. Anything else?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Yes, I believe when if somebody is envy, then you become blind to the truth. Even when the truth is in
Very
front
good.
of you,
Yes.
you don't see it.
Very good. Yes. When you're envious, you don't listen to the truth or you don't hear the truth. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say, let's say you are envious of me, and then, you someday come and ask me a question that, Hare Krishna Madhusudan Vishnu, uh, can you please explain that last time uh, when you gave this class, your presentation was very nice. So how did you make that presentation? If I tell you, well, I was awake whole night and I prepared for 10 hours. I studied very hard, and that's how I made the presentation. If you're envious of me, you will think, no, no, he's bluffing. He must have copied the presentation from someone else and presented it. Right? Isn't it? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what is Krishna saying? Because you are not envious of me, whatever knowledge I am going to give to you about me, you will accept it. If you are envious of me, if I say I am the supreme personality of Godhead, I am everything, I am essence of everything, I am the source of all, you will not be able to accept it. Right or wrong? Yes, Chintamani Prabhu, you understand? Hare Krishna. What's wrong? Am I not audible? Are you all not able to hear me?
I'm hearing you perfectly, Prabhu.
Okay. So why is Chintamani Prabhu not responding? Is he not hearing me?
Probably it's from his own network. I think it's slowing down.
Krishna Prabhu, my network is not that good. Yes.
So if your network is not good, switch off your video camera so that you can
Okay.
at least hear attentively or clearly. Let's not consume the bandwidth by using the video. So I hope now you understand why Krishna is saying, if you are non-envious of me, because you're non-envious of me, you can understand this knowledge. I'm giving you this knowledge, confidential knowledge, right? So this is the meaning. This is the purport. Let's read the purport. As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna and the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he'll surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this ninth chapter matters more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the second and third chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the seventh and eighth chapters are specifically related to devotional service. And because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But the matters which are described in chapter 9 deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in the material world. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditional state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. Now, this first verse has specific significance. The words idam jnanam, this knowledge refer to pure devotional service, which consists of nine different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. With the practice of these nine elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is thus cleared of material contamination, one can understand the science of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living entity is not material is not sufficient. That may be the beginning of spiritual realization. But one should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body. In the seventh chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his different energies, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. Now, in chapter 9, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. The Sanskrit word anasuyave in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly, are all envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So such commentaries should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial. So Srila Prabhupada first told us about the importance of hearing about Krishna. And then he's talking about uh, the essence of these chapters up to 9, from chapter 1 to 9. What is the knowledge given to us in these chapters? So why Krishna is saying here most confidential? Because this chapter gives us knowledge about pure devotional service. Chapter 1 was just an introduction, as Prabhupada said. 2 and 3 spoke about the spirit soul, Atma. That is confidential knowledge. But then higher than that is the knowledge of super soul, Paramatma, or you can say a devotional service, mixed devotional service. And then the highest knowledge is that of Bhagavan or pure devotional service, which is given in chapter 9. So therefore, this is called most confidential knowledge. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain the purport of the word Anasuyave. He said we should hear Krishna Katha or narrations about Lord Shri Krishna from devotees of Krishna because they are non-envious of Krishna. In this way, we will come to know the real facts and truths about Krishna and will not become what do you call against Krishna, because of hearing wrong messages about Krishna. wrong conclusions about Krishna. Okay, so now what is that knowledge Krishna is talking about? That most confidential knowledge that is given in verse number 2. Raja Vidya Rajagoyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshaavagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartumabhyayam. He says this knowledge has 8 characteristics. This confidential knowledge. What are they? First, this knowledge is the king of education, Raja Vidya. This knowledge is the most secret of all secrets, Rajaguhyam. It is the purest knowledge, Pavitram, and it is the ultimate knowledge, Uttamam. It's understood by direct perception of the self by realization. So that's why it's Pratyaksha Avagamam. It is the perfection of religion, Dharmyam. Kartum Avyayam, it is everlasting. And Susukham, it is joyfully performed. These are the 8 qualities or characteristics of this knowledge. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada will individually describe each of these characteristics of transcendental or most confidential knowledge. Right? Let's read the purport. Someone please volunteer. It's a long purport. Someone volunteer to read it.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Purport of text 2. This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophers in India are Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Sandilya, and Vishvanara. And finally, there is Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge. The essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophies. It is the most confidential because confidentially or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities, but there is unfortunately no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. The Bhagavad Gita, especially from the second chapter on stresses the importance of the soul. In the very beginning, the Lord says that the body is perishable and that the soul is not perishable. Antavantra imadiha nityashyota sarirana. That is the confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul is different from the body, and that its nature is immutable, indestructible, and eternal. But that gives no positive information about the soul. Sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body, and that when the body is finished or one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. But actually, that is not the fact. How can the soul, which is so active within the body, be inactive after being liberated from the body? It is always active. If it is eternal, then it is eternally active, and its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of the spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here as constituting the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of all knowledge. This knowledge is the purest form of all activities, as explained in Vedic literature. In the Padma Purana, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the result of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. For instance, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It is first a small sprouting plant, then it assumes the form of a tree. Then it flowers and bears fruits. And when it is complete, the flower and fruits are enjoyed by persons who have sown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man performs a sinful act, and like a seed, it takes time to fructify. There are different stages. The sinful actions may have already stopped within the individual, but the result of the fruit of that sinful action, which as others which are already fructified, and fruits which we are enjoying as distress and pain. As explained in the 28th verse of the 7th chapter, a person who is completely ended the reaction of all sinful activities and who is fully engaged in pious activities, being freed from the duality of this material world, because engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, those who are actually in devotional service of the Supreme Lord are already freed from all reactions. This statement is confirmed in the Padma Purana. Aparadhya phalam pam kutam bijam phalam mukam krame naiva pranihita Vishnu Bhakti Ratat Manam. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reactions, whether fructified in the stalk or in the form of a seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pavitram Uttama, the purest. Uttama means transcendental. Tamas means this material world or darkness. The Uttama means that which is transcendental to material activities. Devotional activities are never to be considered material, although sometimes it appears that devotees are engaged just like ordinary men. One who can see and is familiar with devotional service will know that they are not material activities. They are all spiritual and devotional, uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect that one can perceive the results directly. This direct result is actually perceived, and we have practical experience that any person who is chanting the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in course of chanting without offenses, feels some transcendental pleasure and very quickly becomes purified of all material contamination. This is actually sin. Furthermore, if one engages not only in hearing, but in trying to broadcast the message of devotional activities as well, or if he engages himself in helping the missionary activities of Krishna consciousness, he gradually feels spiritual progress. This advancement in spiritual life does not depend on any kind of previous education or qualification. The method itself is so pure that by simply engaging in it, one becomes pure. In the Vedanta Sutra 3226, this is also described in the following words: Prakasas Chakarman Ni Abhyasat. Devotional service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. A practical example of this can be seen in the previous life of Narada, who in that life happened to be the son of the maidservant. He had no education, nor was he born into a high family. But when his mother was engaged in the service in serving great devotees, Narada also became engaged. And sometimes, in the absence of his mother, he would serve the great devotees himself. Narada personally said, Ushita lipa anumodito dvija sakrit smabuje tad apasta kilbisa evam pravitasya visuda siddhasas tad dharma evatma rushi prajayate. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.25, Narada described his previous life to his disciple Vyasadeva. He says that while engaged as a boy's servant for those purified devotees during the 4 months of their stay, he was intimately associating with them. Sometimes those sages left remnants of food on their dishes, and the boy who had washed their dishes wanted to taste the remnants, so he asked the great devotees for their permission, and when they gave it, Narada ate the remnants and consequently became free from all sinful reaction. As he went on eating, he gradually became as pure-hearted as the sages. The great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service to the Lord by hearing and chanting, and Narada gradually developed the same taste. Narada says further, by associating with the sages, Narada got the taste of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, and he developed a great desire for devotional service. Therefore, as desired in the Vedanta Sutra, Prakasascha Karmani Abhyasat. If one is engaged simply in the acts of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically, and he can understand. This is called pratyaksha, directly perceived. The word dharmyam means the path of religion. Narada was actually a son of a maid servant. He had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother, and further, unfortunately, his mother rendered some service to devotees. The child Narada also got the opportunity, and simply by association achieved the highest goal of all religion. The highest goal of all religion is devotional service. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yata Bhaktir Adoksaji. Religious people generally do not know that the highest perfection of religion is the attainment of devotional service. As we have already discussed in regard of the last verse of chapter 8, Vedesu Yajnesu Tapasu Chaiva. Generally, Vedic knowledge is required for self-realization, but here, although Narada never went to school of the spiritual master and was not educated in the Vedic principles, he acquired the highest result of Vedic study. This process is so potent that even without performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. How is this possible? This is also confirmed in the Vedic literature. Acharyavan Purusho Veda, one who is in association with great acharyas, even if he is not educated or has never studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. The process of devotional service is a very happy one, susukam. Why? Devotional service consists of Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, so no one simply hear. So one can simply hear and chant of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn. Then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God. Nice, palatable dishes in every state. Devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering. Never mind what, even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or a little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social position, and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history simply by tasting the tulasi leaf offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumara becomes great devotee. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to him. It is said here that the devotional service is eternally existing. It is not as the Mayavadi philosophers claim, although they sometimes take to so-called devotional service. Their idea is that as long as they are not liberated, they will continue their devotional service. But at the end, when they become liberated, they will become one with God. Such temporary time-serving devotional service is not acceptable as pure devotional service. Actual devotional service continues even after liberation. When the devotee goes to the spiritual planets in the kingdom of God, he is also engaged there in serving the Supreme Lord. He does not try to become one with the Supreme Lord. As will be seen in Bhagavad Gita, actual devotional service begins after liberation. After one is liberated, when one is situated in the Brahman position, Brahman Bhuta, one's devotional service begins. Sama Sarvesu Bhutesu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. No one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by executing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or any other yoga independently. By this yogic method, one may take a little progress towards Bhakti Yoga, but without coming to the stage of devotional service, one cannot understand what is the personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by executing the process of devotional service, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the science of Krishna or the science of God. Evam prasana manoso bhagavad bhakti yogata. When one's heart is cleared of all nonsense, then one can understand what God is. Thus, the process of devotional service of Krishna consciousness is the king of all education and the king of all confidential knowledge. It is the purest form of religion, and it can be executed joyfully without difficulty. Therefore, one should adopt it. Hare Krishna.
So it's a very long purport, 9.2. And Srila Prabhupada addresses every single point, right? As Mataji read it very kindly. He explains that this knowledge is the king of all knowledge. Arjuna, being a Kshatriya born in a royal family, he went to Gurukul for studies and he learned there many different types of knowledge. But this is supreme Vidya, supreme knowledge. So it's the king of all education, right? Then in the next, it said, Rajakuyam, it's most confidential. As a king, Arjuna is uh, used to keeping secrets. But Krishna says this knowledge is the most confidential of all knowledge, and that's why it's the most secret. It's the purest knowledge because this knowledge will purify all kinds of sins, sinful reactions. And the best thing about this knowledge is you can perceive the good benefits or the good results of it in yourself very easily. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. This knowledge is perceivable. You can realize, you can experience the benefits by realization. Like in that way, Srila explained the entire purport, long purport. So he took every single point very beautifully. Okay, next verse. Ashaddanah purusha dharmasyasya parantapa prapya mam nivartante mrityu sansara vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. So, faith is required, and non-envious attitude is required to know about Krishna, to understand Krishna. to get this knowledge about Krishna. But if one does not have faith, or if one is envious, then Krishna says, you'll have to take birth again, as you'll not understand this knowledge, right? Forward. Someone else will read. Um,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
The faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 31, verse 14, Yatataror mula ni chanena tripyanti tat skanda bujo pashakaha prano paharasha yate driyanam tateva sarvartanam ashute jam. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves. And by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are three divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the third class are those who have no faith. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably, they will sleep after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive, and as soon as they are economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. It is only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of devotional service and has attained the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti or service to Krishna is the best cause, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus, they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the second class, it does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there is no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third-class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency toward karma yoga and jnana yoga, and sometimes they are disturbed, but as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second class or first class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into 3 stages and described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First class attachment, second class attachment, and third class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simple elegy, find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in the devotional service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay. Understood? Yes? Here? Hare Krishna. Next verse. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina matstani sarvabhutani na chaham deshavastitaha. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I'm not in them. Purport. Someone please read.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please read.
Hare Krishna. Can I read?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. The purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not perceivable through the gross material senses. It is said, Ata Sri Krishna Nadi Naba Vegrame Indrayai Sevo Mukteji Jivadyo Swayam Eva Puritha. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. Lord Sri Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and so on cannot be understood by material senses. Only to one who is engaged in pure devotional service under proper guidance is he revealed. In the Brahma Samhita 538, it is stated, Premanjana Chatrita Bhakti Vilocharena Sataha
Sadaiva Hrideshu Loikatin. One can see the supreme personality of Godhead Govinda always within himself and outside himself if one has developed the transcendental loving attitude towards him. Thus, for people in general, he is not visible. Here it is said that although he is all pervading, everywhere present, he is not conceivable by the material senses. This is indicated here by the word avyakta murtina. But actually, although we cannot see him, everything is resting in him. As we have discussed in the 7th chapter, the entire material cosmic manifestation is only a combination of these two different energies, the superior energy, spiritual energy, and the inferior material energy. Just as the sunshine is spread all over the universe, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation, and everything is resting in the energy. Yet, one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. To refute such an argument, the Lord says, I am everywhere and everything is in me, but still I am aloof. For example, a king heads a government which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still, one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. That is a crude example. Similarly, all the manifestations that we see and everything that exists, both in this material world and in the spiritual world, are resting on the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The creation takes place by the diffusion of his different energies. And as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishtabhayam Idam Krishnam, he is everywhere present by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energies. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So Hare
Hare
Krishna is
Krishna.
explaining a little complicated concept. The concept of Krishna's connection to the material world at the same time being completely independent of the material world. The material world depends on him, but Krishna is not affected by the material world, right? So he's saying that I'm in my unmanifested form. What is his unmanifested form? Brahmajyoti, or impersonal effulgence, or effulgence, impersonal form of the Lord is unmanifested form. So through that form is pervading everything and everyone, right? And therefore everything is in him. But in his personal form, as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is separate. He has a separate existence, individual existence. So he says, all beings are in me, but I am not in them, which means I don't depend upon them. They depend on me. Hmm. I don't depend on them, right? Prabhupada gives the example of the king and his energy, that the king is everywhere through his power, through his governance, through his minister, through his control. But then everything or everyone is not in the king. Hmm. And he's also not present individually everywhere. As the king is present in his palace, in the court, in his personal private room, but not everywhere. Similarly, Krishna is present everywhere as impersonal form, Brahmajyoti. But as Krishna, he is in a specific planet called Golok Vrindavan. Okay? Understood this? Right? Yes. So now in the next verse, continuation of the same topic. Na chamatstani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram bhutabrinna cha bhutasto mamatma bhutabhavanaha. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself is the very source of creation.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Purport. The Lord says everything is resting on Him. Matane Sarva Bhuta. This should not be misunderstood. The Lord is not directly concerned with the maintenance and sustenance of this material manifestation. Sometimes we see a picture of Atlas holding the globe on his shoulder. It seems to be the very, very tired, holding this great earthly planet. Such an image should not be entertained in connection with Krishna upholding this created universe. He says that although everything is resting on him, he is aloof. The planetary systems are floating in space, and this space is the energy of the Supreme Lord. But he is different from space. He is differently situated. Therefore, the Lord says, although they are situated on my inconceivable energy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am aloof from them. This is the inconceivable opulence of the Lord. In the Nirukti Vedic dictionary, it is said, Yukchate Nina Dunga Tuse Tisu Kayasu. The Supreme Lord is performing inconceivable, wonderful pastime, displaying his energy. His person is full of different potent energy, and his determination is itself actual fact. In this way, the personality of Godhead is to be understood. We may think of doing something, but there are so many impediments, and sometimes it is possible to do as we like. But when Krishna wants to do something, simply by his willing, everything is performed so perfectly that one cannot imagine how it is being done. The Lord explained this fact, although he is the maintainer and the sustainer of the entire material manifestation, he does not touch this material manifestation. Simply by his supreme will, everything is created, everything is sustained, everything is maintained, and everything is annihilated. There is no difference between his mind and himself, as there is no difference between ourselves and our present material body, because he is absolute spirit. Simultaneously, the Lord is present in everything, yet the common man cannot understand how he is also present personally. He is different from this material manifestation, yet everything is resting on him. This is explained here as Yogam Asvaram, the mystic power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So Krishna says, this is my inconceivable mystic potency, that I am connected to the material world, I am maintaining it, but I'm not affected by it. Hmm. Prabhupada gives the example of Atlas. He says that sometimes people make such image of God. God is burdened by the weight of the planet and or of the globe, and is not able to lift it up. He's become old. Says nothing like that. Krishna can maintain everything very easily. You know, he's not affected by it. He's not disturbed by it. It's a very petty task for him, right? Next verse. Then he gives an example of how Krishna is connected to this world and still disconnected from it. यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायु सर्वत्र गो महान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानि इति उपधारय. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky. All created beings rest in me. Sky is the limit. The wind blows within the sky. The sky controls the movement of the wind. The wind cannot cross the sky or go beyond the sky. It's within the sky. It's limited within the sky. Right? Isn't it? So, so here Krishna is also similarly controlling the material creation and the activities of the living entities. Within the boundary of the sky, the wind is free to move. Similarly, the living entities are given some minute freedom, and within the boundary, they are free to move or free to act or engage in different activities. Right? Let's read the purport here. Someone will volunteer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, purport. For the ordinary person, it is almost inconceivable how the huge material creation is resting in him. But the Lord is giving an example which may help us to understand. The sky may be the biggest manifestation we can conceive. And in that sky, the wind or air is the biggest manifestation in the cosmic world. The movement of the air influences the movement of everything. But although the wind is great, it is still situated within the sky. The wind is not beyond the sky. Similarly, all the powerful cosmic manifestations are existing by the supreme will of God, and all of them are subordinate to the supreme will. As we generally say, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, everything is moving under His will. By His will, everything is being created, everything is being maintained, and everything is being annihilated. Still, He is aloof from everything, as the sky is always aloof from the activities of the wind. In the Upanishad, it is stated, Yad Besa Yata Parvati. It is out of the fear of the Supreme Lord that the wind is blowing. Taittiriya Upanishad 281. And the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 389, it is stated, Etasyava Aksha Rasya Prasa Sani Grihi Surya Chandramansu Vidritu Testata Etasyava Aksharasya Pasani Grididva Apetivyo Vidritva Testata. By the supreme order, under the superintendency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the moon, the sun, and the other great planets are moving. In the Brahma Samhita 552, also it is stated, Yakshakshu Esa Savita Sakala Graham Nam Raja Samasta Sura Murti Esasya Teja Yajya Naya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Shakru Govinda Madhipurushata Maham Bhajami. This is a description of the movement of the sun. It is said that the sun is considered to be one of the eyes of the Supreme Lord, and that it has immense potency to diffuse heat and light. Still, it is moving in its prescribed orbit by the order of the supreme will of Govinda. So from the Vedic literature, we can find evidence that this material manifestation, which appears to us to be very powerful and great, is under the complete control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will be further explained in the later verses of this chapter. Hare Krishna.
Next verse. Sarvabhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamukam Kalpakshaya Punastani Kalpado Vishijamyaham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. Perfect. The creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material cosmic manifestation are completely dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead. At the end of the millennium means at the death of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years, and his one day is calculated at 4.3 billion of our earthly years. His night is of the same duration. His month consists of 30 such days and nights, and his year of 12 months. After 100 such years, when Brahma dies, the devastation or annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again wound up in himself. Then again, when there is a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. Bahushyam, although I am one, I shall become many. This is the Vedic aphorism. Chandogya Upanishad. He expands himself in this material energy, and the whole cosmic manifestation again takes place. Next verse. Prakritim samavashtavya vishrijami puna puna bhutagramam kritsam avasham prakriti vasat. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. Which means Krishna is the supreme controller. Everything happens as per Krishna's will, Krishna's desire. Right? Things get manifested, things get annihilated. Krishna controls through his energies. Purport. Yes, someone please read purport.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Purport.
Yes.
This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahatattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes. And into each universe, the Lord again enters as Gaudakshayi Vishnu. Each Vishnu is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as a Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created because whatever desire the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasyam that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by his will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after creating different species of life, he has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Na chamam tani karmani nivagnanti dhananjaya udasinvat asinam asaktam teshu karmeshu. O Dhananjaya, All this work cannot bind me. I'm ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Krishna has explained this before also in chapter 3 and 4, that though he engages in different activities, he is completely detached from them. He's neutral. He does not have his like and dislike. He does not have his personal agenda or interest. And therefore, whatever he does, that activity does not produce a reaction. It does not bind him to his action, right? So this is to explain that how Krishna is aloof from material reactions, completely aloof, right? Let's read the purport now.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay.
Okay.
One should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of God has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita 5:6, it is stated, Atmarasya tasyate prakriya na samagamaha. He is always involved in his internal blissful spiritual activity, but he has nothing to do with this material activity. Material activities are being carried on by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word Udasinavats. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activity, he is sitting as neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hung, someone is being put into jail, someone is awarded huge amounts of wealth, but still he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2, text 133, it is stated, Avyasmaya Nigrayana. He is situated, he's not situated in the duality of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities, nor is he attached to the creation and alienation of this material world. The living entity takes their different form in the various spheres of life according to their past deed, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them. Hare Krishna.
Next. मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरं हेतुना न कौन्तेय जगत् विपरिवर्तते. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Gaur Shakti Thakur.
Purport. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. The Supreme Lord is the supreme will and the background of this material manifestation. But the manifestation is being conducted by material nature. Krishna also states in Bhagavad Gita that of all the living entities in different forms and species, quote, I am the Father. The Father gives seeds to the womb of the mother for the child, and similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all the living entities into the womb of material nature, and they come out in their different forms and species according to their last desires and activities. All these are living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated and everything is created immediately. Because he glances over material nature, there is undoubtedly activity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. This example is given in the Smriti when there is a fragrance flower before someone. The fragrance is touched by the smelling power of the person, yet the smelling and the flower are detached from one another. There is a similar connection between the material world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, he has nothing to do with this material world, but he creates by his glance and ordains. In summary, material nature, without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot do anything. Yet, the Supreme Personality is detached from all material activities. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Any questions so far? Anything confusing?
No, no, Prabhu.
Everything is clear. Thank you. Now Krishna changes the topic a bit. In these verses, so far he was explaining about his relation to the material world, his connection and his disconnection. Now Krishna changes the topic. Now he talks about the different kinds of worshippers and how do they approach him. So first he talks about the impersonalists. Avajananti vamula manushing tanmashritam parambhavamejananto no bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be.
Purport.
Purport.
From the other explanations of the previous verses, in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet, there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Paramaha Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishwaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some officials or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, but in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvara Parama Krishna, and his body is Satchitananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manusim because he is acting just like a man. A friend of Arjun's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra, In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually, his body is Satchitananda Vigraha, eternal, blissful, and knowledge and absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also, Satchitananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, who is eternal, blissful form of knowledge. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:1. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tam Ekam Govindam. You are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchitananda Vigraha, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:35. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, it is full bliss and knowledge. Its full bliss and knowledge. There are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad Gita who derived Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore, he is called Muda. For only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of a complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy. It has been explained in several places. Mama Maya Duratyaya. He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. If a soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of the material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and the annihilation of the cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestations of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception. So they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated concerning his Yogam Aishwaram, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite. Those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Therefore, they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man. Although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, when the sages headed by Sunat inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Krivaitam kila karmanim saharamena kesavaha ante matyani bhagavan goda kapata no saha. Lord Sri Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked his performed, and so masked he performed many superhuman acts. Bhagavatam, Canto 1, 120. The Lord's appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. While Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands, but after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. As stated in the Bhagavatam, 10th Canto 346, Bhava Prakriti Sisu, he became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now, here again, it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, also, it is stated that Arjuna prayed to see Krishna's form of 4 hands. Tenaiva rupena chakto bhujaneha. After revealing this form, Krishna, when petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form. Manu samrupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. Those of some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy quote the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:29-21 to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarvesu bhuteshu bhutatmanatmataha sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. Quote, we should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharya like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the super soul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his intention to the Acharya-murti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshiping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are 3 kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of a mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, everybody is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So, as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and everybody in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. There are also many impersonalists who derive temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, he is not in the temple or in the deity. Although the personalists and the impersonalists will fight with one another virtually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the supreme personality, he is all pervading. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, although his personal abode is Golok, Vrindavan, and he is always staying there, by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creations. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Very long purport, right?
Very long.
Srila Prabhupada is known for defeating impersonal thoughts, Mayavad philosophy. So he's explaining here very nicely what is impersonalism and how they are at fault, how they are wrong. They don't accept Krishna's form and personality. So he's quoting how that is untrue. Krishna is the embodiment of all good qualities, and he has a form, he has a personality. Now, if someone is an impersonalist, then that person never gets any success in any endeavor. This is given in the next verse. Moga asha, moga karmano, moga jnana vichetasaha, rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. Those who are thus bewildered and attracted by demoniac and atheistic views, in that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Yes, Anangavan. Okay, are you there? Anangamohini Mataji, you wanted to read the previous one.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
I read. Okay.
He said I should read
Yeah, please read.
12 purport. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be Krishna conscious and devotional service, but Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the first fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tested. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive, pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from the material entanglement will never be successful either, because they are derived, because they derive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their neutral speculation is to arrive at the absolute truth brings them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of the delusion. Such atheistic and demonic cultivation of the spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled. It is great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the internal form of Krishna. The bride Vishnu Srimti clearly stated, Yovita Bantikam Diham Krishnaya Paramatmatna Sarvamat Basi Kaya Shrata Srimta Vegatnataha Muhatasya Valuyapi Samchala Samnam Achinat Chirats
Chariots.
Acharate. Okay, thank you. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in this species of atheistic and demonic life. Perpetually, their real nature will remain under delusion, and gradually they will digress to the darkest region of creation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That's it.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Now Krishna shifts to the topic of pure devotees of Krishna. In 11 and 12 years to talking about the impersonalists. Now he talks about the pure devotees, those who worship him with pure unalloyed devotion. Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakritimashritah bhajanti ananya manaso yata bhutadamavyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible Mahatma, great souls. What are their characteristics that explained here in this verse and in the next verse? In two verses, we'll talk about the pure devotees. And then Krishna will talk about the demigod worshippers again, as he has done in chapter 7. Okay, so let's read the purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that is already situated in the divine nature. It's not under the control of material nature. And how is this affected? This is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Devi Prakriti, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna and Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Next. Satatam kirtayanto mam tantascha dridvitaha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Now, what are the activities of such a great soul? These are the activities. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Purport.
Purport.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising his holy name, his eternal form, his transcendental qualities, and his uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmajyoti, is not described as Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or a human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam, remembering him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything, in the service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatma, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired results. As described in the 2nd verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service guided by an expert spiritual master and in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari. In any position and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो मामुपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्. Now Krishna talks about another kind of worshipper known as a jnani. Gyani is also a kind of impersonalist, but then he's not a Mayavad. Right? So Krishna talks about that, a Gyani. There are three types of Gyanis. One is Ekatvena, another is Prithatvena, and third is Vishvato. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. Yes. Apurva Prabhuji? Apurva Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Purpose. This verse is the summary of the previous verses. The Lord tells Arjuna that those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna is called Mahatma. Yet there are other who know everything other than who sorry. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma, but who worship Krishna also. In different ways, some of them have already been described as the distressed, the financially destitute, and the inquisitive, and those who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into three. One, he who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord, he who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that, and he who accepts the universal form, the Vishvarupa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worships that. Out of the above three, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists, are most predominant. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord, and in this mentality, they worship so. At least such a sense is prominent. Generally, the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way.
What happened? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Next verse. Aham kraturaham yagyah sudhaham aham aushadam mantroham evajyam aham agnir aham hutam. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant, and the butter, and the fire, and the offering. Purport. Small purport. Please read.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Can I read the purport?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. The Vedic sacrifice known as Jyotishtoma is also Krishna and is also the Mahayagya mentioned in the Smriti. The oblations offered to the Pitriloka or the sacrifice performed to please the Pitriloka, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. The mantras chanted in this connection are also Krishna, and many other commodities made with milk products for offering in the sacrifices are also Krishna. The fire is also Krishna because fire is one of the 5 material elements and is therefore claimed as the separate energy of Krishna. In other words, the Vedic sacrifices recommended in the Karma Kanda division of the Vedas are in total also Krishna. In other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service unto Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Next verse. Pitamasya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara riksami suyevacha. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sam, and the Yajur Vedas. The entire cosmic manifestations, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's margin energy. Under the creation of Prakriti, some of them appear as father, mother, grandfather, creator, etc. But actually, they are parts and parcels of Krishna. As such, these living entities who appear to be our father, mother, etc., are nothing but Krishna. In this verse, the word dhata means creator. Not only our father and mother, parts and parcels of Krishna, but the creator, grandmother, and grandfather, etc., also Krishna. Actually, any living entity being part and parcel of Krishna is Krishna. All the Vedas therefore aim only toward Krishna. Whatever we want to know through the Vedas is but a progressive step toward understanding Krishna. That subject matter which helps us purify our constitutional position, especially Krishna. Similarly, the living entity is who is inquisitive to understand all Vedic principles is also part and parcel of Krishna, and such is also Krishna. In all the Vedic mantras, the word Om, called Pranava, is a transcendental sound vibration and is also Krishna. And because in all the hymns of the 4 Vedas, Sam, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, the Pranava or Omkara is very prominent. It is understood to be Krishna. Everything is, in one sense, Krishna, because everything comes from Krishna. That's how the worshipper of the universal form thinks and becomes absorbed in thought of the absolute truth. Gatir Bharata Prabhu Sakshihi Nivasa Sharanam Suhit Pravah Pralayasthanam Nidhanam Bijamavyayam. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. So in this verse also, in similar ways, Krishna is explaining how everything is Krishna. Someone please read.
Hare Krishna. Purpose. Gati means the destination where we want to go. But the ultimate goal is Krishna, although people do not know it. One who does not know Krishna is misled, and his so-called progressive march is either partial or hallucinatory. There are many who make as their destination different demigods, and by rigid performance of the strict respective methods, they reach different planets known as Chandraloka, Suryaloka, Indraloka, Maharloka, etc. But all such lokas or planets, being creation of Krishna, are simultaneously Krishna and not Krishna. Such planets, being manifestations of Krishna's energy, are also Krishna, but actually they serve only as a step forward for realization of Krishna. To approach the different energies of Krishna is to approach Krishna's indirectly. One should directly approach Krishna, for that will save time and energy. For example, if there is a possibility of going to the top of a building by the help of an elevator, why should one go by the staircase step by step? Everything is resting in Krishna's energy. Therefore, without Krishna's shelter, nothing can exist. Krishna is the supreme ruler because everything belongs to him and everything exists in his energy. Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, is the supreme witness. The residences, countries, or planets on which we live are also Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate goal of shelter, and therefore one should take shelter of Krishna either for protection or for annihilation of its distress. And whenever we have to take protection, we should know that our protection must be a living force. Krishna is the supreme living entity. And since Krishna is the source of our generation, the supreme father, no one can be a better friend than Krishna, nor can anyone be a better well-wisher. Krishna is the original source of creation and the ultimate rest after annihilation. Krishna is therefore the eternal cause of all causes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? We'll
You are
stop here.
welcome. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, my question is this. In chapter 9, verse 4, then there Krishna says that is all-pervading, and then that all beings are in him, but is not in them. Okay, but I can, okay, I know that, I have read that Krishna is in every being's heart as Paramatma. So between the two declarations, I'm a little bit confused, not to say very much confused, because
Thank you for the
Krishna
question.
saying Krishna saying is not in the beings, and then somewhere we know that Krishna is in every being as a Paramatma. Though it is difficult for me to understand. Please, Prabhu, would you like to clarify this to me? Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Very nice question. So we need to understand that Krishna is speaking here from different perspectives. Sometimes he's referring to his form as the impersonal form, Brahmajyoti. Sometimes he refers to himself as the Paramatma, and sometimes he refers to himself as Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who lives in Golok Vrindavan. So when he says, I am everywhere, all pervading, he's talking about his Brahmajyoti aspect, the Brahman feature, which is all pervading. But when he says, I am not in all beings, then he's referring to his personal form of Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. He's not as Krishna in everyone's heart. He's in everyone's heart as Paramatma, but not as Krishna, the Shamsundar Krishna. That Shamsundar Krishna lives in the spiritual abode in Golok Dham. You understand me? Absolute truth has three features: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So in some cases, he's referring to himself as Brahman. In some cases, he's referring to himself as Paramatma. And in some cases, he's referring to himself as Bhagavan. So when he refers to himself as Bhagavan, he is not present in everyone. Understood, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. I understand now.
Yeah,
Now I understand.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's how we.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay, any other question? No. We'll stop here, then see you tomorrow for the remaining chapter. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.